My name is Elena Ramirez, and I have lived a life needed by struggle, loss, and resilience. For over 30 years, I've woken before dawn, tying my apron before the city itself wakes. The smell of yeast and butter has been my companion, my therapy, and my legacy. I started as a dishwasher in a greasy diner with nothing but a dream, and today, I own 4 bakeries scattered across New York City. To the outside world, I'm a success story. To me, I'm just a woman who refused to crumble. 8 years ago, I lost my husband, Miguel. He was my anchor, the man who believed in me when all I had was a rolling pin and a stubborn heart. His death left a silence that no oven could fill. But I had one reason to keep going: our son, Alex. Alex became the light that pulled me through every dark morning. He grew into a thoughtful, talented man, an architect with eyes full of purpose and hands that built dreams for others. We shared everything: dinners in the bakery kitchen, stories about his work, our quiet rituals of coffee and laughter. He was my world. Then one autumn evening, as I was closing the register, my phone rang. "Mom," Alex said, his voice brimming with excitement. "I'm engaged." For a moment, I just stood there, stunned, my heart swelling. "Engaged? To who?" "Her name's Sofia Martinez," he replied. "She's amazing, a marketing director at an international firm. You'll love her." I wanted to. Heaven knows, I wanted to. Our first meeting was at Alex's apartment the following week. When Sofia walked in, she looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine cover, tall, graceful, dressed in a sleek cream suit that screamed elegance. Her dark hair was styled perfectly, her smile measured. She greeted me politely, her tone smooth but distant. Every answer she gave was carefully curated, as though rehearsed. There was something cold about her warmth, like sunlight filtered through glass. Still, I told myself not to judge. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe she didn't know how to connect yet. Love could make anyone guarded, couldn't it? But over the following weeks, small cracks began to appear. One afternoon, during lunch, I caught Sofia whispering to Alex, just loud enough for me to hear, "Does your mom always dress like this? So plain." I froze, pretending not to notice. Alex laughed awkwardly and said, "That's her style, practical and down to earth." But the words lingered. I'd never cared for designer clothes or fancy jewelry. My pride came from honest work, not appearances. Still, it hurt, the idea that my simplicity somehow embarrassed her. When the engagement party came around, I wanted to prove I welcomed her, that I could offer warmth, even if not luxury. I closed my flagship bakery early, hung strings of soft lights, filled the room with fresh flowers and trays of my best pastries. It looked beautiful, cozy, intimate, full of heart. Sofia arrived an hour late, gliding in on high heels with her parents. They were the kind of people who carried money like armor, polished, proper, and slightly bored. The moment she stepped inside, I saw her expression falter. "Alex," she sighed, scanning the place, "I thought we'd have something more upscale." My son's face flushed. "Mom worked hard on this," he said softly. "It's perfect." But Sofia only smiled thinly. Her mother murmured something about how charming it looked, the kind of compliment that hides a wince. As the evening wore on, their disinterest was palpable. Her father scrolled through his phone, her mother sipped wine and offered comments like, "You really did all this yourself? How quaint." I kept smiling, even when my hands trembled as I refilled glasses. Then came the toasts. I stood and raised my cup of sparkling cider. "To Alex and Sofia," I began. "May your love rise like the finest bread, strong, patient, and full of warmth. Welcome to our family, dear." A small giggle broke through the silence. Sophia had leaned toward her mother, whispering, "Family. It's just her, a widowed baker pretending to be something more." The laughter that followed pierced me deeper than any insult ever had. My smile faltered. Alex's shoulders stiffened, but he said nothing. The air in the room turned heavy. My hands clenched beneath the tablecloth, and for a long moment, I felt the same sting I'd felt years ago when people told me I'd never make it out of poverty. When the guests finally left, I sat alone in the dim light, surrounded by uneaten pastries and half-filled glasses. The fairy lights flickered above me like fading stars. That night, I washed every dish by hand just to keep from crying. Hours later, I heard a knock. It was Alex. He looked exhausted, eyes full of guilt. "Mom," he said, sitting down. "She didn't mean it. She's just under pressure. Her parents can be demanding." I sighed. "Alex, she called me riffraff in front of everyone. And you said nothing." He looked away. "They're paying for the wedding," he murmured, as though that explained everything. "It's going to be huge, the vineyard estate, the catering, everything." I didn't recognize the man in front of me. My son, once so grounded, now sounded like someone chasing approval instead of love. When he left, I stood by the window, watching the city lights blur through my tears. My instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. Sophia wasn't just rude, she was hiding something. And I had learned, long ago, to trust that voice inside me. So, the next morning, I made a call, one I hadn't made in years. "Carla," I said when she answered. "It's Elena. I need your help." Carla was an old friend, a private investigator who'd once known me during my rougher years, before I turned my life around. I told her everything, the lies, the arrogance, the unease that wouldn't leave me. She agreed to dig quietly. Days later, she called back. "Elena," she said grimly, "your instincts were right. Sophia's job doesn't exist. Her degree, fake. Her family business. There's no record. And she doesn't live in that luxury apartment. Her real address is a rundown studio in Queens." I felt my stomach twist. Why would she lie about everything? "Because she's living a double life," Carla replied. "Debt, fake identities, even a dismissed fraud charge. I think she's done this before." The truth crashed over me like cold water. My son was being played, and I couldn't stand by and watch. Carla told me about a locked chest in Sophia's closet, the one she believed held her records. We couldn't force our way in, but we could outsmart her. A week before the wedding, I arranged a surprise bridal shower at her real apartment, pretending to be part of the planning committee. During the visit, I faked a phone call about a bank issue that needed immediate verification. Panicked, Sophia rushed to fetch her documents, unlocking the chest. Just for a second, I saw its contents: fake IDs, notebooks with names, and even photographs of wealthy men labeled with notes. When she turned away, Carla's camera clicked twice. Later, when we studied the photos, my blood ran cold. There, written clearly in black ink, was my son's name, Alex Ramirez, circled, with a note beside it: "Target, secure assets before April." I felt my world tilt. The oven's warmth that night couldn't chase away the chill that sank into my bones. I knew what I had to do, but I also knew it would break Alex's heart before it saved him. The morning of the court hearing arrived like a storm disguised as sunlight. Harlow's County Courthouse stood proud and solemn, its brick walls catching the early rays of dawn as if bracing for what was to come. I parked the car, took a deep breath, and glanced at my mother beside me. She looked smaller than ever, her frail hands clutching a folded tissue, but her eyes, those same eyes that once looked down at me with fear, now held a quiet strength. "Are you ready, Mom?" I asked softly. She nodded. I've been ready for years, Ethan. I just didn't know how to say it. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with murmurs. Familiar faces from town sat in the benches, whispering stories they thought they knew. The sight made my stomach tighten. In small towns, gossip spreads faster than truth. But today wasn't about them. It was about my mother, about giving her the voice she'd been denied for so long. Marcus Hale, our attorney, greeted us at the table with a calm smile. We have everything we need. Just stay composed. He turned to my mother. You're the truth in this room, Elena. Don't let him take that from you again. When Victor entered, the air changed. He walked in like he still owned the world, dressed sharply, but with a hollow arrogance that didn't fit him anymore. His eyes met mine briefly, cold and hard, before sliding to my mother. You really want to do this, he muttered loud enough for us to hear. After everything? My mother didn't reply. She simply straightened her back, lifted her chin, and faced forward. That quiet defiance was louder than any shout. The hearing began. Marcus presented our evidence, photos of injuries, the medical reports Dr. Hayes had prepared, and statements from neighbors who had heard years of shouting and crashes through thin walls. Every detail felt like reopening an old wound, but each one brought light into the darkness my father had built around us. Victor's lawyer, Derek Voss, was as slippery as they came. He painted my mother as emotionally unstable, accused me of using police influence to fabricate evidence. At one point, he even implied my mother's injuries were self-inflicted for attention. The words made my blood boil. I gripped the table so tightly my knuckles turned white. But Marcus's calm voice anchored me. We don't argue with shadows, he whispered. Then came the moment that broke and rebuilt me all at once, my mother's testimony. She stood, walked slowly to the stand, and swore the oath with trembling fingers. For a moment, she was silent. Then she began to speak. She didn't cry. Her voice was steady, fragile at first, then gaining strength with each sentence. She talked about the early days of their marriage, the charm that masked control, the slow erosion of her confidence. She spoke of nights when silence was safer than truth, mornings when she pretended everything was fine for my sake. She looked at Victor and said, "You taught me to fear, but my son taught me to be brave." Even the judge leaned forward. You could feel the weight of every word. When Victor took the stand, his mask slipped. His voice rose, his temper flared, and the calm courtroom became a battlefield of old wounds. "She's lying," he shouted. She always needed someone to blame. But his anger only confirmed everything my mother had said. The truth was undeniable now, written in his every movement. By the time the judge announced the verdict, voiding the coercive contracts, granting my mother half the assets, and issuing a restraining order, the courtroom was silent. My father's face twisted in disbelief. "This is injustice," he roared, slamming his hand on the table. Officers moved in quickly, guiding him out as his curses echoed behind him. Outside, sunlight poured over the courthouse steps. My mother took a long breath, her shoulders trembling with release. "It's over," she whispered. I smiled through the sting of tears. "No, Mom. It's just beginning." For the first time in decades, she was free. The weeks that followed were like learning to breathe again. My mother moved in with us permanently, settling into the rhythm of our family life on Willow Street. Sophia treated her like her own mother, and Lily adored her company. I often came home to find them in the garden, Lily chasing butterflies while my mother watered the flowers, her laughter light and new. Healing came slowly, but it came. There were mornings when I'd see her staring at the horizon, lost in thought. I never interrupted those moments. I knew she was making peace with the years she'd lost. Meanwhile, news about my father spread through Harlow. His reputation crumbled. Brooke, the woman he had left my mother for, disappeared from town not long after. Rumor had it she'd run off with another man, leaving Victor alone in the decaying house that had once been our home. I told myself I didn't care, but late at night, I found myself wondering how a man could destroy everything and still look at himself in the mirror. Months passed. I poured myself into my work, finding new meaning in every case that crossed my desk. Whenever I helped someone escape a situation that reminded me of my mother's, it felt personal. Justice had become more than my job, it was my redemption. Then, one evening, as summer faded into autumn, I got a call that shattered the fragile calm. There had been an incident at a local apartment complex, a woman found lifeless, signs of violence, and a witness who had seen Victor nearby. My stomach sank. Brooke's name was mentioned, the world seemed to tilt. We left the shattered party behind and went home. The bakery smelled like cinnamon and hope, warm, familiar, honest. As we sat together with 2 mugs of coffee, I felt peace return, slow and deep. Weeks passed. Carla updated me that Sophia's syndicate, led by a man named Victor Hale, had been dismantled. But Sophia herself had vanished after posting bail. For a while, every shadow near the bakery door made my heart skip. I thought I was done with that kind of fear. Then, one rainy morning, she appeared. I looked up from the counter, and there she was, dressed simply, no makeup, eyes hollow but human. "My name's Lucia Vargas now," she said quietly. 5 minutes. That's all I ask. I hesitated, then nodded. She stepped closer. "I was wrong," she said. "All my life, I used people. But I saw how you stood there, how you faced your past without running. I don't know how to change, but I want to try." "How did you do it?" I studied her face, the same woman who had nearly destroyed my son, now stripped of pride. "It starts with wanting to be honest more than wanting to be rich," I said gently. "You face the pain, pay your dues, and choose better every single day. Change isn't easy, but it's real if you mean it." Her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. She left that day and turned herself in. Months later, I learned she had joined a rehabilitation program, later founding a small organization to help fraud victims rebuild their lives. I didn't forgive her right away. Forgiveness takes time, but I respected her courage to begin again. Years passed. Alex married a kind-hearted woman who adored him for who he was. The bakery flourished. Every morning, as the scent of bread filled the air, I remembered that redemption, like dough, needs warmth, patience, and time to rise. Sometimes, I still think about Sophia, or Lucia, as she's now called. Our paths crossed again once, at a charity event she organized for victims of financial crime. When our eyes met, she gave me a small, genuine nod. I returned it, silently wishing her well, because in the end, I understood something deeper than I ever had before. The past doesn't define who we are, our choices do.